Hi, I'm George Nordhaus, and welcome to another product knowledge video. This one is a real educational thing because it's on marine insurance. And most of us don't realize all that's involved in marine insurance. It's complicated, but it's simple in a lot of ways. It's simple, I suppose, if you're the man who presents it, who spent his whole lifetime doing it, and that's Ron Hayes. He's had experience in risk management, everything. He owned an agency. He's been around for a long, long time, 40 years or something in the business, and he's got a tremendous reputation in the field, particularly in business analysis and all that. Let me have Ron tell you a little bit about what his organization does, if I may. Okay, Ron?
Okay, thanks, George, for the kind words. Just to give you a little background, my partner and I own a company called Pacific Marine and Energy Resources, and we combined have more than 80 years experience in the insurance business. And we've been direct agents for insurance companies, retail brokers, national, regional, local, management consultants, captive consultants, acquisition consultants, wholesale brokers, program managers, and Lloyd's cover holders. So there isn't much we haven't done. We started agencies from scratch. We know the problems retailers have. We currently work with insurance resources, carriers, and such over 4 continents. A lot of our business was Lloyd's, and I started dealing with Lloyd's way back in 1979. And account sizes have ranged from, groups of small accounts to single large accounts nearing $1 million and, $10 million in annual premiums.
Whoa.
And while we did have one. Their work comp alone, our longshore was $7.2 million. And while we're best known for marine, our experience includes pretty much most other kinds of businesses. In Marines, specifically, we have accounts. We've included accounts that were involved in new construction, in repairs of ships, and shipbreaking, which is ship scrapping, yachts, tugboats, barges, fishing boats, anything from river guides to tuna clippers, workboats, grain terminals, ferries, ocean salvage, cargo, marine property, and more than that.
God. Is there any more? Man, that's a beautiful.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, marine insurance, sort of the definition of that is that marine insurance covers the loss of damage of ship's cargo, terminals, or any transport by cargo, any property transferred, acquired, or held between points of origin and final destination.
Wow.
And it's really the oldest form of insurance. The first marine policy was actually written in 1347.
Oh my gosh!
In
Wow.
Genoa. It's older than we are, George.
Yeah, look at that. Okay.
Modern marine insurance really got started in the Starbucks of London, the Lloyd's Coffee House in 1686, and it was really a bunch of guys who own boats or cargoes, and they may own one, and if they own one and it went down, they were out of business.
Mm-hmm.
So they started what are called subscriptions. They reinsured each other. It was sort of the original mutual insurance company. And Lloyd still is the largest provider of marine insurance and actually insurance in the world. And their original concept of syndicating is still there. But today there are providers all over the world. You see every continent there's an insurance company that says, whatever, fire and marine. So that really goes back a long ways.
I can comment on that. I don't know if you knew that.
Sure.
I'm not talking about me right now, but I was one of the first members of Lloyd's in the United States, because back then in the 70s, 80s, they took people in the United States, and that was and the only reason I'm saying that is I was in a number of syndicates, and that's a whole other story I don't want to get into. I ended up being the chairman for them for the West Coast, and that was fun, but it wasn't fun too in the same way. It was very difficult because you had to know what you were doing.
No, as you know, as a member of a syndicate, you are pledging your personal fortune, as I say, down to your last pair of gold cufflinks.
Yeah, I always heard that, and boy, they were right about that. But that's another story. Okay, well, I don't want to slow you down.
Well, the capacity in London right now is more corporate than it is personal.
I see.
So, but you know, the language is still very different. It reads in more like Old English than it does modern English, and the policies don't read like you would normally think they are.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, most insurance departments don't really understand it that well either. For a number of years, I'm in Oregon. For a number of years, the code had a chapter number, chapter 27 or whatever, it says Marine and Transportation. You get there, and it said, this page is intentionally left blank.
Oh,
True,
wow.
true. It's generally divided into hull insurance, and that's the hull itself, including machinery and pretty much anything that floats and would sink.
Mm-hmm.
Freight, which is if you're shipping goods, it's the charge for shipping those goods, and the cargo, which are the goods being shipped.
Yep. Right.
And the liability, which is different than you normally think, because it not only covers what you would think is for the operations, you know, hitting another boat or hitting a dock or a wharf or whatever, but it also covers the liability to injury of passengers and employees. Okay. And there are related coverages of the docks, wharves, piers, marineway, drive docks, graving docks, warehouses, and so forth.
Everything. Let me ask something. Excuse me. Let me interrupt you. You look at the water's brown there, and the other pictures are blue. What do they mean, blue water and brown water? I've always heard that in London.
Yeah, and it's really not so much the color water. Blue water is generally considered boats that go out in the ocean a long ways. You know, if you have a freighter going from here to Hong Kong, that's blue water.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a tugboat pulling a barge full of oil or lumber or whatever from Seattle to San Diego, that's still brown water because it's near coastal. So brown water covers near coastal business as well as bays and docks and rivers and so forth.
How far inland are the coverages?
Funny you would ask that, because I haven't gotten too much into the P&I coverage on crew yet, but if you have a crew member of a vessel, and he's sent from Long Beach to Chicago to pick up a crucial part for the vessel, he's covered as a member of the crew.
Oh, okay.
Because the definition is he's contributing to the mission of the vessel.
Wow,
that's very broad. Very broad.
That's really fascinating. Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm learning. Keep going. I'm learning.
Yeah. Okay. And a little more about hull. A property policy, it covers anything that floats, has floated, will float. And the ownership is really different from non-marine. There are coverages like increased value, port risk, general average, and that doesn't have to do with abilities. An average is a claim. Certainly, fleet policies are normal. Deductibles read differently. Total loss can be covered by itself and not partial loss. Partial losses, by the way, are covered on a new for old basis without depreciation. So they're real concerned how old your engine is, and and that sort of thing, because the underwriters know if you suck salt water into an engine, the engine is gone. Even if it's a 1948 engine, they have to put a new one in.
Wow.
Okay.
That's fascinating.
Protection and indemnity, that's really covers damage to the property of others, such as the docks, cargo, loss of use, personal injuries to the crew, passengers, member of the public. Some pollution can be covered under that also. And as far as employee liabilities, your crew can be covered under what's called protection and indemnity, and that's the master liability policy. Or if they're not a member of the crew but just working on the ship, under marine employer's liability. And both of those are not statutory, and by that I mean that there are limits. If you buy $100,000 limits, that's the most the insurance company is going to pay. The other claims, type claims, U.S. Longshore and Harbor Workers Act, that's designed for, it's a federal claim, and that's in every state, and that covers if the employee is loading or unloading a vessel, if they're scrapping a vessel, if they're repairing a vessel, and some other things, and the coverage on that is statutory. In other words, there is no limit to the medical side of it. It could be millions of dollars. There is Defense Base Act, which is very similar, Outer Continental Shelf Act, and that sort of thing. And if they miss all of those, they're covered under state workers' compensation.
I'll be darned.
That's
fascinating.
That varies per state.
God, this is complicated, isn't it? I mean, it's complicated in the fact that you really have got to deal with it for a long, long time before you could even begin to understand it. At least I feel that way right now.
You do. My basic training on this was a 2-week seminar just for the longshore side. At any rate.
I'll be darned.
But there are other things too. There's charters liability, and you can charter a boat.
Mm-hmm.
It's called a bare boat. That's without the crew. You furnish your own crew. You can charter it on a time. So many, the voyage or by the hour or whatever, or by the voyage. There terminal operators liability. That's where you own a terminal and you are essentially guaranteeing that the boat can tie up there safely.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're getting into the pleasure boats, sailboats and motorboats and liveaboards and so forth. And then there are trading warranties, and those are really interesting too, because they essentially say you can't take your boat out more than 100 miles, or you can't take it any further north than Cape Disappointment or further south then. And those are worldwide. Then there are hundreds and hundreds of trading warranties.
Oh my goodness! Let me ask you something.
Sure.
We've got a lot of agencies around the country that and they're in the middle of I don't know, Tennessee or Indiana. Say, what the heck do I care? Why would I care?
Well, actually, Tennessee is a good example. A number of years ago, we were called to write insurance on 2 boats. One was $5 million in value, and the other was $1 million in value, and they were owned by a contractor in Tennessee, and we picked up coverage when they were in South Africa. We wrote the coverage too while they're going past the Philippines and and Singapore and all the other pirate havens in the world, all the way through the Panama Canal to Mobile, Alabama. So, yes.
Well, that's an exception, but what about the average agency? I mean, they may know somebody. You said yachts down there. I mean, probably everybody knows somebody with a yacht or insures them, don't they?
They do, yachts. And matter of fact, we just recently helped an agent in Montana who has a customer who owns a fishing boat in Alaska. Okay, wow. So wherever you are, Great Lakes is a great example, because there are a lot of boats in the Great Lakes, both commercial and yachts.
I see. Well, it's pretty amazing. I mean, it's very amazing how big the marketplace is. Gosh, I just didn't realize it.
Yeah. And there are, I just noticed on the slide it says Argo Insurance. It's really cargo insurance. So I'll correct this as we go along.
Okay.
But marine insurance, particularly cargo, is full of abbreviations. We have books with just abbreviations in them. CIF is cost insurance freight, but FOB is free on board, and so forth. But there are a lot of those without going into those right now. Claims. You notice there's a book again. It's like an encyclopedia on claims.
Oh my God.
We have our, I'm looking over at our bookshelf, our bookshelf of marine insurance volumes is about 8 feet long.
Gosh.
Yeah,
that's unbelievable.
And Longshore, Longshore is a 45-page federal law, and it was patterned after the workers' compensation law for District of Columbia. And the law itself is pretty simple, but the court interpretations in the 6 districts would run out of my office and my partner's office and our reception room and so forth. Huge body of law in Longshore. It's very complicated, and it's all claims. It's how much you're going to pay, when are you going to pay me.
Oh my gosh, this is phenomenal. I bet you've been testifying in court a lot over these 40 years.
I have. I went in about 2 years ago. An agent, and this could happen to any agent. An agent was insuring a marina, and it was a covered marina, and he renewed it at his agent's suggestion without damage from the weight of ice and snow.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big snowstorm coming, ice storm coming, and he called the agent, or the agent called the agent. He was in Hawaii. He called the agent in Portland and said, "Agent, what should we do?" And the guy said, "Well, this one looks pretty bad. We probably ought to get some insurance." They sent the request in to the wholesaler, who didn't have binding authority, sent it into the insurance company, to the underwriter, and the underwriter got around to looking at it the day after the storm hit, and the dock collapsed.
Oh my God.
The cover dried up.
Oh.
So in that particular incident, it was really interesting because the agency had sold their agency, merged in with a large national company, and did not assume the liability. And this was a policy that incepted before the sale.
Oh boy.
So the agent and his two partners paid $1.5 million out of their pocket.
Oh God! Every agent better
Yeah.
listen to that. Well, here, this is we're almost finished here, but before you finish, we just had Hurricane Harvey, and now Irma, and so forth. And I bet there had to be tremendous number of boats, ships, everything ruined or whatever. Do you know?
No, the numbers are not in yet. I can give you a little bit on Superstorm Sandy, which happened a few years ago.
I remember it. Yeah.
We were consulting at that time with an agency in New England who specialized in yachts.
Mm-hmm.
They wrote, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yachts. So what happened to them? I don't have any financial numbers. However, a huge number of their customers had their boats sink or were damaged in the storm. So they suffered in the fact that these policies were not renewed. Number one, nobody was buying new boats in New Jersey for a long time to come, and they were on profit sharing programs with their underwriters. They weren't getting any, because those are on 3-year rolling. So they essentially, I think, lost their profit sharing for 3 years.
God. Oh, brother. Well, I think it just reiterates the complexity of this situation here. I think that the magic answer here is for people who are visitors here to the agency's website. Just go in to contact me, and then you'll go right back to the agency, and then the agency can contact you. We hope you'll have they will have all of the connection with you, because I mean, what I come away from this, Ron, and I've been working with you now for a few weeks and learning, and I come away with you saying this is a really, really important coverage that every staff member in the agency should at least see and hear this. And certainly anybody who's writing any of this kind of business better go to a pro, or you're in deep trouble. What do you think?
Yeah, and a lot of what we do is educate the brokers that we deal with too. We are really not a retail broker anymore. We spend a lot of time doing that, but for the last 10 years we've been mostly doing wholesale, and we've had binding authorities with Lloyd's and all that sort of thing. And agents are always getting surprises. The biggest one was years ago when we were retail. I got a phone call from one of my customers who said, "Ron, I bought a boat." And my first question is, how long is it, Doug? And he said, "Oh, it's about 1,000 feet."
Oh, come on.
Pause.
Pause.
He bought the scrapping rights to a World War II carrier.
Oh, for God's sake.
So we had to insure that vessel while it was being taken from the Navy Yard out to sea and down to where his shipbreaking yard was. And so forth. Anyway, so those are some of the surprises that we
Well,
get.
I know that we can. People can talk to you. They can talk to you through their agent, and I'm glad that you're around. I want to thank you very much, you and
You
Pacmar,
bet.
because you are our marine spokesman, and we're particularly happy to have you on all these agents' websites across the country. So,
Oh, well, we're really pleased that we can work with you, George.
well, we love it. Okay, bud. Thanks again, and
You
we'll see
bet.
the rest of you for the next one.